Maybe all these pings were just other birds.
The pings were actually ham sandwiches being dropped out the windows of the airplane.
Ham sandwich.
Hey everyone, I'm Dale.
And I'm Brit.
And this is A Toast to the Atypical, the podcast where we talk about all sorts of strange happenings. And we're on episode, I guess, 27B.
B.
I guess is what this would be. Episode 28, technically.
Yeah, it's episode 28.
Yeah.
I think I would only call it 27B if it was in the same week.
Yeah, which we did that with the Warrens,
The Warrens
episode.
which was the two-parter.
So, yeah, episode 28. We're talking about, this is a continuing conversation of the Malaysia airline episode from last week. Hopefully you enjoyed that. It seemed like you did. There were some good views on that one, some good comments on it as well. So thank you all for that, and thank you for the new listeners and subscribers. We have had a number of you to the YouTube page and to the Instagram page as well.
Yep.
So thank you guys.
Thank you.
So much. We also did have somebody chime in. We didn't do it for this episode because we had already kind of planned all of this out. Obviously not the drink selection, but we had somebody chime in on our Buy Me a Coffee, and they will be kind of sponsoring an episode coming up, which is cool because they gave us an episode idea as well, which is really neat. So thank you so much to the listener. You know who you are, and
The listener who did not, who chose to remain anonymous.
Who shall not be named.
Yeah, Voldemort.
Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, thank you very much.
Yeah.
We know who you are. You know who you are. Thank you for being a very loyal listener, and thank you.
Our other follow-up, what?
You just you look like you had 17 different thoughts floating around up there, and
my system
figure
froze.
out what direction to go. You just glitched real
My
hard.
system froze. Well, I know the past couple episodes I have teased our merch coming out.
Yes.
And I don't want to pass over it this time. I want to bring it up again. We do have merch coming out, and it's awesome. We had an hour phone call last night with the company we're working with.
Yep.
We're super excited about it, but we don't want to make the official announcement until we get our merch.
So we placed our order.
Yeah. And we can show you.
Yeah, and once ours arrives, we will show it to you on an episode, and then include what is available to you, how you can use it.
Yeah.
And we'll share with you where to get it and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we think it deserves a little bit more than just a good shout out. So we're gonna make sure that you guys can see it, and that way we can give a really honest opinion of it too once we're actually able to use it.
Yep.
So yeah, it's coming. It is official.
Probably be a few episodes before we can actually announce it.
Yeah, we think it'll probably be about 2 because what did they say?
I think shipping is going to be here the April 3rd
April 3rd.
to the 5th, something like that.
Yeah, and today's the 25th that we're recording this. So, yeah it's going to be probably an episode or 2 before it arrives. So maybe not next episode, maybe the following if all goes well. So keep a lookout for that. But yeah, it's on the horizon. So we're very, very, very excited.
Yeah, and as I'm looking up at the camera here too, I do want to say I apologize for last episode's video quality. We had serious video issues. Honestly, wasn't even sure if we were going to get a video out last week because it was a rough situation. I have 2 cameras running right now just to make sure we do have decent video for this one. But basically, our main camera last week took a shit at the last second. And
it was all grainy and it looked like it was underwater. It was cloudy.
Yeah.
Nothing coming home from work and being hey, how was your day? And you're just busting out a fucking drill in the camera. And I'm like, oh. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go inside and be far away from this.
Yeah. So it was kind of a rough situation. But hopefully it's going to be okay now because we're back to the camera we've been using. And I think it's fixed. So we'll see. But yeah, do you have any other follow-up? Are you good?
No.
All right.
I think that's it.
All right. Well, drink selection is just leftover for me. I feel like shit and probably shouldn't even be drinking. You're going to hear that in my voice. I'm super congested.
The 4 of us are just kind of passing around something.
Yeah.
I thought mine was just like my usual sinus crap because it's been raining for the past like 4 days here.
Yeah.
But then like 2 days after my congestion
Yeah,
started,
it's just a nasty
you
cold.
got
the
kind of
past-
gunky.
Yeah.
So last episode, I felt like I was on the verge of it, and
Mm-hmm.
apparently I was right. So I am still just taking it easy. I'm water only and rehydrating and trying to
Yeah. And I'm
undo
rehydrated.
whatever's
There's
going
water
on.
in beer.
That's
So
not how that works.
there's
No, no, mm-mm, nope. No,
so,
you're wrong.
so I'm drinking a
No,
Schmittix.
you're wrong.
I'm drinking a Schmittix. And if the Schmittix gets drinked, we did this
I don't
last
know. We
episode
did
too.
this last episode, and I didn't know
If
what
the
it was.
Schmittix is gone, there's a bottle of Jack over there. Call my name too. But
Okay.
yeah,
Mister, I shouldn't be drinking.
I shouldn't. But
It's
you know what?
gonna
If you're
mix
gonna
me up.
drink, you may as well drink, right? May as well do it. Yeah, it's a nasty cold that we all have though. But isn't it fantastic when you just wake up in the middle of the night to sneeze from a dead sleep, just like
I don't think I've ever woken up.
it happened the
from
other
a
night.
Dead sleep,
Oh my god,
sneezing.
it's I scared myself. Nothing like laying there just probably dreaming. I don't know. I don't remember my dreams anymore. But just all I remember is waking up to literally like that feeling of like I am sneezing right now and nothing. Thank God I was not facing you because I would have sneezed directly on your face.
That's lovely.
Guaranteed.
It was
really
like
didn't know
you were aware, but not enough to actually like cover it.
Yeah, no, it was
Okay.
like my arms were still under the covers. Like there was nothing I could do.
Cool. I'm really glad I just changed our sheets
Yeah.
and bedding. That
Yeah,
would have
I
been nice of you to
sneezed
tell me
all over them.
at some point, like
Mouth
the
open
next
and everything.
day. When was this that this happened?
I don't know. It was just the other night.
It wasn't just last night though.
No.
Okay, cool. So we slept.
I don't
in,
think it was.
in those sheets
Maybe it
another
was.
time. That's lovely. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I live with
Yeah.
scumbags.
Or like waking up where your nose is just like a faucet.
Yeah, that's been
That's the
happening to me. Is like I will wake up with that feeling of like, oh shit, it's about to drip so bad. I told you this morning I woke up and my left nostril was just like, ugh, like I could not stop it, and I like sniffled really hard to try to like suck it back in, and all that happened was my left ear just like crackled, and it was, oh my god, there was so much pressure. And I was like, I like flew to the bathroom to blow my nose, and luckily today was better, but like that was very uncomfortable to wake up to.
I couldn't fall
Just
back
that,
asleep
like, drip
after I
was annoying.
sneezed like that
Like
because
the adrenaline.
I scared the shit out of myself.
You went into like full flight.
Oh
fight or
my
flight mode.
god, my heart was beating through my chest after that, like somebody was just broke into our house. Oh my god, I just sat there or laid there and just like stared at the ceiling.
That's gross.
Yeah,
That's pretty awful.
it was terrifying.
That does not sound like a nice way to wake up.
No,
Nah.
is there ever really? Oh, I don't know.
No.
Anyway, all right. So,
You're stupid.
Malaysia Airlines Part 2 is what we're going.
Also, we're gonna apologize because we have
I'm
been
not apologizing. You can apologize for you.
We have been calling it Malaysian Airlines because that makes sense to us.
Yeah.
It is Malaysia Airlines, but for whatever reason, the two of us just cannot stop saying Malaysian.
It just makes sense.
It does. I agree. So, yeah, we're probably going to say it again.
I may have
We know we're saying it wrong.
You know what?
Honestly, whatever. I'm going to try, but no promises.
I'm looking right now. I may have even hashtagged it Malaysian on our Instagram. Oh, you know,
I didn't look.
I screwed up our Insta, so I'm gonna have to deal with that.
That's nice.
I just, you know me and passwords and
Oh, Christ. Again?
yeah, I hate passwords so much. And everyone keeps
Use the book I bought you.
that's fine, but the book was out here when I tried to log it. Yeah, it's fine. So yes, Malaysia Airlines Part 2. So all of this kind of stemmed from obviously the anniversary of this on March 8th. But also the Netflix special that came out. So I think what the layout we're going to do here is we're going to kind of talk through the theories that Netflix tries to, I don't want to say push on you, but that Netflix tries to push on you because...
No, you didn't put Malaysian.
I didn't? I said Malaysia?
No, Malaysia
Okay,
and Malaysia Airlines.
Cool. Yeah, because some of the Netflix ones, there's, I don't know, you'll hear it when we're talking about it. But just a brief overview. If you didn't listen to the first episode or the first part of this 2-part episode, first off, go back and listen to it because that's where all of the information is on what happened with MH370.
Yeah, that's your whole timeline.
Yeah.
That's like all the definite information.
Right. But the brief overview of it is on March 8th, 2014.
This bag's so loud.
Open your snacks.
I'm sorry. I have salted caramel popcorn.
Do you want a
that
container to
somebody
put it
gave
in?
me? Kind of.
So you're not
I think I'm
ruffling-
just gonna like tilt the bag.
It's not going to work.
You don't work.
I do.
All right, whatever.
Don't I?
I don't know. I'm not here when you're working.
That's true.
I don't know what you do. I'm not your fucking keeper.
Damn straight.
It's not my turn to watch you.
Brief overview is March 8th, 2014. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 took off from Kuala Lumpur Airport, headed toward Beijing Airport, and the short of it is 30 minutes into the flight, the radar they disappeared off of. Oh my god, am I having a seizure right now? They disappeared off of radar.
39 minutes.
That's what I said, isn't it?
No.
What did I say?
30.
39 minutes. Jesus Christ.
Do you want me to take over?
No.
Are you sure?
I need to win back my brain in my mouth right now.
Well, why don't you stop after this and I'll take over and
Maybe.
take a little
Yeah.
reprieve.
So, yeah, 39 minutes into the flight, they disappeared from radar, and their communication went dark. So, after years and years of searching, there were countries that were searching, there were private searches, there were all sorts of stuff, and there really was nothing figured out of exactly what happened. There were supposedly some parts found, and we'll get into that, that indicate what the media was saying happened is what happened, but there's a ton of speculation, which is why we're here today talking about all of the theories of what people think happened.
Yep.
So,
All right. So theory
since
number
I'm
one.
seizing right now, would you like
Yeah,
to...
I'm gonna take over so you don't continue just like leaning into whatever's going on with you. Yeah. So theory number one, which was the kind of original theory as proposed by Malaysian Airlines,
Which I feel like this is like a very immediate reaction anyway.
So the way that everything went down, you know, it just went dark. From
The way everything went down. Is that...
you're such an asshole.
Fucked up.
No, you're fucked up. You fucking went there. I didn't intentionally. Anyway, sit down and shut up. You're done.
I'll
Your
sit, but I'm
talking
not
part is
shutting
over.
I'm listening. I'm all ears.
Are you listening now? Because it seems like you're talking. So when they lost communication, when there was no signal, when the radar disappeared, you know, the original thought was that the pilot and or co-pilot were involved. I guess typically when there's a hijack of some kind, there's some sort of call or like distress signal or something that happens prior to it going completely dark, and that didn't happen. So it just went from Goodnight Malaysia 370 to nothing. So the original theory, which was what was released by Malaysia higher-ups, was that the pilot and co-pilot were involved in a murder-suicide. Yes. So, and this is another theory that Jeff Wise in the documentary paints a good picture of. So his thought is that they enter the gray area, and then the pilot turns off...
Gray area of the radar.
Of the radar,
right.
yes.
So this is where like the handoff between the Kuala Lumpur communication and Vietnam, Vietnamese airspace. Vietnamese.
Ho Chi Minh, right? Yeah. So Jeff Wise says that he, the thought and the sequence of events in this theory is that the co-pilot or the pilot, Captain Shah, sends the co-pilot Hamid to the back as they enter the radar gray area. Shaw then turns off all electronics, causing the plane to vanish from radar. He then pulls a hard left. Co-pilot comes back to the cockpit and attempts to re-enter, finds it locked. At this time, Captain Shaw has depressurized the cabin. And during this time, the oxygen masks in the cabin typically last about 15 minutes, but the captain and the co-pilot would typically have a longer acting mask. Since the co-pilot was not accessed back into the cockpit, he would be in the same situation as the passengers. After that hard left, captain then turns south and flies into the darkness, basically waiting for fuel to run out. Once the fuel starts to run out, he pushes the nose down to bring the plane crashing into the sea. The big flaw with this theory is that it has never taken 6 hours for a mass murder-suicide of this magnitude. Normally, it would just be your 9/11 attack type of thing. It would not be a, let's wait for the fuel to run out and just kind of go down easy. So I think that's kind of the big thing that I took away from it that just seemed odd to me. But you brought up a good point when we were talking about this, when we watched it. Do you remember what you said about the 6 hour thing? Because I was like, that's really weird. And you brought up a good point. I don't know if you remember what you said to me.
I brought up so many good points, so I'm having a hard time. Which
no,
one
this
you're
is the only
about?
one I remember.
Give me a hint here, and I will go with it.
So you had said that you would think that it wouldn't be that rare for him or that unheard of for him to basically just deprive everyone else of oxygen and then just have that peaceful...
Right, yeah. So, yeah, my thought was going off of this thought, because there's another thought to this, but going off of what you're saying, I was thinking if he was suicidal and loved flying, I mean, the guy flew forever. I forget how many years he was a pilot. But obviously it was something that he loved, and maybe this was a situation where, like, he offed everybody in the cabin and then flew into the peaceful view of just an ocean in front of you and just kind of wanted to peacefully go quietly. He was the only one left alive on the plane at that point, and it was just him and his machine going into the sunset, essentially.
Right.
So, I guess that's a good ending to a chapter if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But the other thought with that is, and I don't know if you can repressurize a cabin in the air after you depressurize it, but his oxygen wouldn't last that long.
No, so they did say that most masks last 15 minutes, and they said that the captain had a longer lasting, but I don't remember them saying exactly how much longer.
Yeah, I think it was like 3 hours.
I mean, even so, it's still, I mean, a half an hour would be enough to kill everyone else, and then just have him go down.
Right, but what I'm saying is on the radar, he was tracked for 8 hours after. Still,
okay.
So
right.
they don't. He didn't go down. So like,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless maybe he didn't depressurize the cabin right away.
Yeah, I don't know.
And waited until maybe he knew he had that 6 hour window of fuel and held out until that point. I don't know. So because this was the original theory of Malaysia Airlines and their, what was it, the CEO of the company who released the media?
Yeah. No, most of the communication you saw was from their, what do they call them? not their hazard, their like emergency response guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I forget it.
So in the
Farad or
first
something. His
yeah,
name
in the
was.
first press conference that they did, they hinted that they were looking at this as a criminal investigation, and because of that, they went to the pilot's home and they were able to seize a flight simulator from his house. At the time, they didn't release much of information about what was found on the flight simulator, but we did find out years after the fact through the media that this particular pilot flew a much similar route to what occurred during this situation. So, not the intended route, but the route that was tracked by the handshake pings. And I guess my big question is, this wasn't really something that was highly publicized. Like, I don't remember hearing about this bit of information back when this all happened.
I don't
And
either. It may have
my
been
question is
publicized.
why? Like, why would the FBI and the the airline, oh god, I forget what it's called, but basically like their criminal investigation team, like why would they not
Internal
release
affairs kind of
this?
thing?
Yeah, I don't think that's what they call
Probably
it, but
not,
something to that effect. Like why would they not hold, or why would they hold that back and not release that? And then I also read that he and his wife had been kind of on the outs for a bit too. They were still married, but
Right.
apparently he would come home and was very distracted and detached and just not happy. But then I saw other information that wasn't true. So there was a lot of conflicting information about his demeanor leading up to the flight. But the assessment that they do pre-flight showed no indicators that he was depressed or suicidal in any capacity. So in the weeks leading up to it, his friends at Malaysia and his coworkers said that they really didn't have much of an indicator that this was on the horizon. So yeah, I'm torn on this one. That was my original thought, was like, okay, who the hell is this guy that's controlling the plane, and
Yeah.
what's his story?
Yeah.
So yeah, originally I was not I was on board with this one, but I don't know.
So
I have questions still. But.
yeah, I mean, I have a ton of questions. Obviously, everybody does.
Right.
But my thing with this theory is it doesn't make too much sense to me unless it wasn't the pilot, but it was the co-pilot that did all of this. Because the pilot had an amazing track record, and yeah, they supposedly years after the fact they're saying that there was a similar flight on his flight simulator, but
Right.
that they could just put that information out to try to settle minds and like blame it on this guy more at this point.
Yeah. So that was going to be one of my questions. Like, was that something that was kind of planted or released after the fact to
Yeah.
basically make everyone shut up
I
about
think
the
it
theories?
was. So I think here's my problems with this theory. If you're unless you go the route that I already said of like he wanted a kind of a peaceful death and was suicidal, then like if he was destructive and suicidal, even though I guess technically he was because he killed 237
37,
people,
39, 37, I forget.
he, not to be grim about it, but like he could have taken out a lot more if he wanted to.
But if he was just suicidal and not like a total asshole, like he could have just taken out himself in a different way.
Right, that's what I mean. So like it's strange to me that like he was okay killing all of the passengers, but if he wanted like a grand thing and like his name known or whatever as a suicide thing, he could have done something a lot more destructive. I mean, he flew over a ton of huge cities.
Right, and he could have also, like, instead of just the goodnight call, he could have been, like, he could have said something.
Yeah.
Like, he could have taunted them and been like, watch this shit.
Yeah, I don't know. It just this one doesn't make sense to me. I think it's the easiest thing to point a finger at, and I think it's a very easy scenario for every country to point blame at one person and plant evidence to make it really look that way. But I don't necessarily believe this one. I don't believe this one.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really think that's my favorite either.
Yeah.
You want to do the second one?
Yeah, sure. So the second theory that Netflix goes into is a potential hijacking. So there were 3 Russians confirmed on the plane, and there was a lot of turmoil, as many times there are, going on in Russia at this point. One of these 3 Russians was in a first class seat. So Jeff Wise on his blog basically laid out the scenario of what if this is what happened. So he said, what if 2 of the Russians created a distraction for the flight attendants, and the first class seat gets into the electronics bay, which supposedly the electronics bay on a Boeing 777 is in an unlocked compartment in front of the first class section.
Right.
So all you
So
need to
that
do is like
electronics
lift
bay
up.
is where the Inmarsat data
Right.
and the just
Everything,
electronic in
yeah.
general is
Yeah, it's
located.
like the
Everything
frickin'
is in there.
server room.
It's the hub.
Yeah. So this theory is that one of the Russians gets into the electronics bay, and then when the plane reaches the gray zone, the Russians make the plane go dark by tampering with the systems and take complete control of the plane from the electronics bay. And then they continue to depressurize the cabin. They change the release of the oxygen, and the captain and co-pilot lose consciousness as well, which they can basically control everything
Right.
from this electronics bay with nobody trying to stop them.
Right.
Then he continues to say, well, if they got into the electronics bay, they could do all this, and they probably altered the Inmarsat data to show a southern route instead of northern. And if you reverse the southern route, so we mentioned in the previous episode that the Inmarsat satellite doesn't give direct GPS locations. It gives a radius around. It gives you a radius range from the satellite to the ping. So it could be anywhere in a northern or southern direction. So what?
Right. It functions in a radius. It can only reach so far. So the information that they get. So let's say it's a 30,000-mile radius.
Yeah.
Just for argument's sake.
Right.
It can tell you if the ping is 12,000 miles
Right.
from the satellite or 30,000 miles.
Right.
It can't tell you the GPS coordinates if it's north, south, east, or west, but it can tell you where along that radius it is in relation to the satellite and how close or how far it is within its within its footprint, I guess.
So the southern range is what media went with, that the plane crashed in the southern Indian Ocean.
Right. Because that was what the Inmarsat data showed.
But
or no, that was what the handshakes.
Right, which are the Inmarsat.
Right. So, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So if you reverse that southern route and take the northern route instead, it brings you to central Kazakhstan. So Jeff Wise laid this all out there, and then the group that he was in, that independent group, that was a bunch of tech vigilantes basically trying to get to the bottom of this from their homes. He got kicked out of the independent group because of the theory, and mainly because the group was based on that southern theory, and that's where all their study was going.
So why were they so hung up on that southern route? Like, why?
Because they were of the two. There was the independent group and the Tom Nodders.
Mm-hmm.
The independent group was very data heavy.
Okay.
So the data said it was a southern route.
Right. So how do we get that from the Inmarsat data though? Like we said, it doesn't tell you a direction. All it tells you is a ping, how far it is from the satellite itself. So how do we definitively say that the data points to a southern route and not a northern or a western or whatever?
I don't know the answer to that, and
So
I
that's
don't
the part
know.
that's hanging me up is we haven't found anything
Right.
or not enough anyway. So like let's explore the possibility that maybe we're not right.
Right. So, in addition, I mean, Jeff admits after putting this out there that he knows that you can't fly the plane from the electronics bay.
Yeah.
So this was all just a wacky theory, probably just to get more publicity. But he admits that you can't. But the Inmarsat
But
data,
so they could have done everything else though. They still could have
right?
depressurized the cabin. They still could have
They
messed
just
with
couldn't
the
control the plane.
right, but they
Right.
still could have cut off the oxygen to the
Right.
cockpit and then entered the cockpit and taken it over.
Right.
And I think that that's where his theory went a bit flawed.
Right.
Was not acknowledging that he missed a step there. Because like you said, okay,
Right.
you can't fly it from the electronics bay, and apparently a lot of people know that if you
Mm-hmm.
know anything about planes, which I didn't prior to this
Right.
really heavily. But it doesn't mean that they still wouldn't be able to completely do everything else leading up to that point and then still take over the plane physically.
Yeah.
So I think that that was just kind of a silly thing for him to throw in there.
I agree.
I think that that could have been a lot more cohesive.
Probably. But, and I don't know how I feel about this theory, but you have to remember that a few months after Flight 370 disappeared, Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 was shot down by Russia.
Yep.
July 17th, 2014, it was the second incident with Malaysia Airlines in 4 months, and Flight 17 was shot down by a Russian surface to air missile.
Yep.
So both planes were Boeing 777s, and you also again you have like Russia invaded Crimea
Yep.
in 2014. So there was a ton of stuff going on over there.
Right.
This is not the first time Russia's shot down a plane and tried to cover it up. And it's not the first time they shot down a plane and just in general. I mean, they've shot down planes before.
Right. And this was, like you said in the beginning, this was a season of very heavy turmoil.
Yeah.
So it would not be unheard of. And I think, personally, I think the hijacking is more likely than the pilot-co-pilot murder-suicide.
Yeah.
I think there's a stronger chance of the hijacking. I don't know if it happened exactly the way Jeff Wise has it written out. And I also don't know if they would have taken that western or the northern route instead of the southern. Like I feel like that's where he loses some points for me, is where he's like, oh, you know, you can't fly from the electronics bay, or you can't, you know, it would have been northern and not southern, and he would have done this mirror, or he would have done this or that. That's where he loses me a little bit, because I feel like if you just keep the track the way it is and not get hung up on this central Kazakhstan bit, you could still hijack a plane and fly it to the south into the fucking ocean. Like, it just makes no sense to me that he would put that bit in there and get hung up on that northern route information, get kicked out of the freaking independent group that he was a part of because he was willing to die on the northern route hill instead of acknowledging that Russians could have still hijacked the plane and taken it southern instead.
But if Russians were to hijack the plane, what purpose would it cause for them to just crash it in an ocean somewhere?
I don't know. I'm not saying that. I mean, it was still what, 300 and some odd people, 200 and some odd people.
To no point though.
Well, I mean, no plane parts were found in central Kazakhstan, so.
I don't even know if they was searched. I mean, you couldn't really get into Soviet or to Russia at that point to look.
Kazakhstan's not in Russia, is it?
It's Western.
That was like Middle East.
Western Soviet, isn't it?
I don't think so.
I don't know. Double check that.
Central Asia.
Okay. Map that shit out.
No, it's near.
Country and Central.
Well, I mean, it's not far from Russia.
I mean,
but
it was probably under Russian control at some point, or
not then. I don't think.
what was the? I mean, there's still a shit ton of turmoil. I don't know, but either way, I don't find a point again to the point that I said about the pilot.
Yeah.
If Russia had hijacked a plane, they would have found a lot more use for it than crashing it into an ocean. They flew over a ton of other populated areas if they wanted to make a terrorist attack type of situation. Which
Yeah.
I listen, Russia's dirty, but I don't think they're that. Like, they'll bomb you. I don't think they'll hijack a plane to crash it into something. I don't know history-wise if they've done that. But I feel like
I guess I'm not understanding what the purpose would be to crash it in Kazakhstan either. Like, how much would you get out of that versus just crashing it into an ocean?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think they followed the northern route enough to know exactly what happened on the northern route, except for the fact that if you followed the end point that they went south but north instead, it would be somewhere in Kazakhstan. Maybe they were trying to fly it into Russia for a future terroristic threat.
Yeah, I mean, they would have been very close to Russia.
Yeah, so maybe they were trying to get it into there for some other reason, and wound up crashing before they could, or wound up getting tied up in other airspace. I don't know.
Don't you think that there would have been some sort of media coverage that a plane went down in the middle of Kazakhstan, though?
I don't know. I mean, we don't know half the shit that's going on around the world.
We don't know half the shit more than half the shit that's going on in our actual country.
I mean, you don't know. Maybe something did go down. I have no idea. But this one's hard for me to believe because I feel like there would have been, they could have done a lot more and would have done a lot more. Knowing Russia's war tactics, they would have done a lot more than hijack a plane of less than 300 people to crash it into an ocean.
I agree.
So this one's tough for me to believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Then I guess so. Sorry, I'm just looking through this here. 'Cause I think this belongs in the next theory here.
No.
No, I guess not. So, there was, which we talked about in the last episode as well.
My favorite guy.
Yeah, our boy Blaine, the adventurer, Blaine Gibson. So this is kind of to tack on to the fact that Russia could have been involved. So
Yeah.
Debris washed up on an island in the Indian Ocean.
This was in July of 2015.
Right. So we talked
So it's
about
a year and some change after the accident or the disappearance in the first place.
right, and this was, which I'm just linking this now, a year after also MH370 was shot down, or MH17 was shot down. So both Boeing 777s, Russia had access to parts of Boeing 777s.
Yep.
So finding this debris essentially killed the northern theory.
Yep.
The northern route theory of the plane going up north into Kazakhstan somewhere. So this Blaine the Adventurer Gibson, we mentioned that there's a bunch of shade getting thrown at this guy anyway, because he first off, he's just a shady looking character, but he's been...
I don't give a shit about what he looks like.
Yeah.
But
so
I don't trust this
dude
motherfucker.
finds a piece of debris, like very specific, like it says no step on it, like it was a piece of a plane. in Eastern Africa, and then somebody told him, like, go to this island and that. Like, he was finding debris
He
fucking
got, like, this
everywhere.
weird-ass, like, insider trading information.
Yeah. He
It
was
was
finding shit
odd.
everywhere. So he was believed to be an agent, a double agent, and a triple agent. This guy was, like, on everybody's radar. So it brings up the question, because he has decades worth of links to Russia, that was this stuff planted by someone who was working with the Russians, and he was thought to be an intelligence agent
Yeah.
for Russia. He was there when the Soviet Union collapsed. He started businesses with two Russians who are high-ranking Russians.
Yep.
Speaks fluent Russian.
He speaks, I think,
7 different.
17.
Oh, 17. Okay.
I thought it was, like, 17
Okay.
different
Ton of
languages.
languages.
He speaks multiple.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was, like, 6 or 7 or 17, but he
Yeah.
speaks multiple different languages fluently. Russian is one of them.
Yeah. And
So-
because he's in so many circles, he's been accused of being a spy, an organ trafficker, a sex trafficker, like everything. Because he pops
He
up like
happens
everywhere.
to, like, know everyone.
So so the theory there could be that Russia shot it down and then hired Blaine to cover it up
Right.
by planting stuff,
Yeah.
parts in other areas. So
Yeah.
I don't
So,
know. And it was also super shady. I don't know if what they showed on Netflix was video clips of Blaine that were reenacted for the news when all this was going on. But, like, the clips were literally Blaine walking on a beach with some, like, local guide.
yeah.
And, like, a camera following him. And he was just like, oh, yeah, there's a piece of what looks like a plane.
Yeah, it
Like,
was so weird.
It
was
seemed like
so,
it was a reenactment, but I don't know if it was.
excuse me. It seemed very
Planted.
anticlimactic.
Yeah, he was just like,
He
oh,
just
yeah.
was like, oh, look at that.
Even,
like
the
he
look
was
on
just
his
looking for
face.
fucking seashells.
Yeah, even the look on his face when he was holding it up.
He was very unenthused. So, like, if he is a agent, double agent, triple agent, like, he's not a very good actor.
I don't know, man. All right.
But, yeah. So, that kind of brings us into theory number 3 here. So,
Netflix theory number 3.
right, Netflix theory number 3, because there's billions if you go on the internet.
Interwebs.
So, theory 3 is that the whole thing is a cover-up.
Yeah.
So, this flight flew over the airspace of 6 different countries. We had Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, and Indonesia. And not a single one of them could produce radar images of MH370. Malaysians said that they saw MH370 on their military radar at one point, but there was never been any proof.
Right. Nobody showed any proof.
However, MH370 did fly over an air base called Butterworth, which is under Australian command. Which is odd because Australia was actually leading the search for debris in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
So I guess with it flying over a military air base, how in the fuck can you not scramble interception or alerts, or like, how is there not any kind of indication of like, hey, this doesn't fucking belong here? Like, why wasn't there more at the time if this showed up on their radar?
Yeah.
Especially because there were 2 different major military exercises going on in the South China Sea at the time of the disappearance. And both of them were involving the United States.
Yeah.
So knowing our military and our technological advancements, even 10 years ago, there should have been some sort of indicator that they knew that something was there.
Yeah. If something's in their airspace, they would know.
Right. There were 2 different airborne warning and control systems monitoring the area when the plane disappeared. And there's reports that some informant going by the name of Mr. B, a senior member of the U.S. intelligence community, claims that the U.S. knew everything that was going on because of the airborne warning and control system.
So the airborne warning and control system. The Netflix special and military calls it AWACS.
AWACS. Mm-hmm.
And they're basically gigantic planes with these ridiculously large, like, satellite dishes on them.
Yeah.
And they're extremely powerful radar interceptors. They have all sorts of abilities.
Mm-hmm. So the claim is that the AWACS had the ability to scramble the radar of MH370 and send a warning message to them. There's also a thought that the U.S. shot it down during this military exercise and then tried to cover it up. But
yeah, so the thought was that they scrambled the communications and then relayed a message to the pilot and gave him some sort of direction of what they wanted him to do, and he refused. So they shot it down.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess my question would be why? Like, I don't know.
I have no idea. But I guess finish this theory, and then I'll give you what I have in my mind on this one.
So, as we mentioned, there was a large concentration of military power in the region at this time, and basically, like, how the hell could they lose an entire Boeing 777 with that many different technological monitors in place? Like, how could that just fucking go missing? Because we ain't talking about a tiny plane. Like, this is a big bitch.
You're in charge of
this
the
is
sky.
a fucking Big Bertha.
Right?
Like, we're not talking about some rinky-dink little fucking...
This isn't a little fucking pond hopper. Like,
no, like, this is not Dusty Crop Hopper here.
No.
Like, we're talking a big bitch. Yeah. So... really, the only thing that we can rely on at this point is the Inmarsat data and the handshake pings. It's the only thing that we really have to go off of, which is...
so trustworthy.
Right. And it can be tampered with. And basically, like, is Inmarsat as a whole actually reliable in the first place? Like, not even just the people on the plane who could have hacked in and fucked with the transmission, but, like, is Inmarsat inherently trustworthy? So Inmarsat has a government branch attached to it, which provides services to militaries of the U.S. and other powers. So I guess the one theory and the one thought that feeds into this theory is, could the information have been altered as part of a military exercise? So would this be like a trial for them to say, hey, let's see if we can fuck with this, and is this a possibility?
Yeah.
I guess I have a hard time thinking, like, that they would do that with a passenger plane of that many people. Like, wouldn't they do it with, like, as, like, a trial run with maybe no passengers, or, like, just a pilot? Or I don't know. It just seems like a stretch to me to have it be, like, a military exercise to take down that much. So I don't know if I buy into this one either. Honestly, I feel like it's probably a combination of all of these things, or some of them, or whatever. Like, it just seems like there are bits and pieces of each of these theories that could be true.
Yeah.
But others that I'm like, no fucking way. So there were bits of information that came out in the Netflix special that I found. Or do you want to touch on that before I jump into this next section?
Well, this...
yeah, the electronics and stuff.
So that actually goes with this.
Okay.
So...
right, but I don't know if you wanted to say anything about what we just said. You said you had something you wanted to add. Or do you want to wait?
Yeah, so the... No, we'll wait. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll wait. Go ahead.
So, in the investigation, they found that 2.5 tons of electronics were on the plane as cargo, listed as walkie-talkies and radio accessories and just other bits of equipment. The big problem with this, though, is that these were delivered and loaded onto MH370 the night of the flight without being scanned by x-ray machines, which is incredibly rare. But there's... that is very strange to me, that they wouldn't properly scan things that are coming onto the plane. Yep. Especially something that's like being escorted directly there and like hand delivered. That immediately would send my antenna up. I would not trust any of that. But jumping back to the AWACS as well, they are known to have phenomenal, and that's a direct quote from one of the experts in the Netflix special, they are known to have phenomenal jamming capabilities. So there's also, in this theory, that they jammed and tried to intercept the flight by ordering the captain, as you said. Yes. And then when the captain refused, he was taken down. So I guess I'm still kind of hung up on the why of all of it, which we'll probably never know. But there are other things where I'm like, okay, I could see the drive behind that, and I could see the want for that or the need for that from like the Russian standpoint, or even the co-pilot theory. Like I could still see a reason for that, but I'm getting very hung up on the military exercise involvement. Like that just seems like, I feel like there's a million other ways to carry out an exercise of that magnitude without killing that many people. Yeah. That seems odd to me that would be the direction they would choose to take just for a military exercise. Right. But go ahead.
So I agree, but I think I like this military theory because you have two extremely large military exercises going on that involve many of the big powerhouse countries. Yeah. So realistically, MH370 aside, they could do whatever the fuck they want, and as long as they all agree we ain't saying shit, they can cover up whatever they want. Yeah. The other side of it is it's a military. So no one is going to give you all of the information out there because they don't want you to know what they know. They don't want you to know the capability that they have.
Well, yeah, then that puts them at a disadvantage. Right. Like the whole point right now with military and training in general is that they have the upper hand.
Right. So my theory on I'm not going to give my full theory on it because I want to give it at the end.
Let's get into a little bit more of some of these strange conflicting things. So why don't you jump into that?
Okay. Yeah. So we'll get back to what my theory is on all of this. Actually, it ties in.
Why don't we switch? Why don't I take that and then you take the other theories at the end after you talk about yours? Okay. All right. So during the Netflix special, there were bits of very odd or like conflicting information that were really strange. Yeah. So during the time that the flight was still to have been in air, there was a reporter from the New Zealand Herald who called and asked, the home of one of the passengers on the plane named Paul. So Paul's wife answers the phone and she's like, "No, Paul's not home. Like, what the hell are you talking about?" Yeah. But like, if the reporter knew that the plane was missing, because this had already gotten out to the media and everyone kind of knew what was going on, or had some sort of alert to what was happening, but didn't really know what was going on. Like, why would the reporter call and ask for the passenger on the fucking plane knowing he's not home? Right. Like, that just struck me as so fucking weird. And like, that to me, like if that had been you and somebody called our house and asked for you from a freaking reporter from a newspaper. Yeah, it would have been... I immediately would have been suspicious. Like, what do you know that I don't know? Right. That seemed like there was some sort of withholding of information in that section that I just couldn't get past. And then keeping all the families together in a hotel. Yeah, I found that very weird. Was so odd.
I said that to you a couple times during the episode.
To me, that seemed like them trying to keep them in like a compound. Like controlling the narrative, trying to only release bits of information that they could at the time. Which to a certain extent I can understand because media is fucking insane.
Well, they told them that, that's... they weren't allowed to talk to media.
Right.
And that was a way of them controlling that.
Well, it wasn't so much talking to the media that I got out of it. I mean, yes, they did directly say that, but to me it was more so like if they're in a hotel and they're not, watching television or having access to whatever, like they're not getting all these conflicting media reports. So I think it was just filtering some of the information that was available to them, which to a certain extent I can understand because the media will take a story and run rampant with it. And if you look at 10 different media outlets, you will get 10 completely different versions of the same story.
Oh, yeah.
So I think for their own sanity, that the airline may have potentially had their best interest at heart. So I don't necessarily hate the idea of keeping them all in one spot rather than trying to call them back together when they got new information.
Yeah, I get it.
It made more sense to me to have them in a centralized location and just having access to them quickly to say, hey, we're going to get you guys all together and talk to you about what's going on. Rather than needing to make the phone call, wait for everybody to get there. Like, that just seemed excessive.
I get it.
But the not letting them talk to the media thing threw me off.
Yeah.
But I guess it was a way for them to, I don't know if control the narrative is the best term, because I don't know that Malaysia Airlines inherently had anything to do with it. But I think that if the families got out there and said the wrong thing on the media, then like their whole reputation would have just been shot to shit.
Yeah.
And I think that would have been really hard for them to try to put their efforts into finding this plane and also into saving some face.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I don't hate the idea of them keeping everybody in one location.
Yeah, I guess so.
The one that really fucking threw me, which I could not stop talking about, were the phones. Mm-hmm. So there were two things that kept happening. One in particular, during this time that the family members and the loved ones of the passengers on the plane were gathered, one girl gets a phone call that comes up and it says Papa on her cell phone. Now, her father had been on the plane. She turns to one of the other family members there, and they were not clear. I don't think it was one of her own family members. I think it was just another person who was there waiting for their loved one. She turns and says, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? I think that was fucking stupid. If it were me and my loved one is missing and no one knows what's going on and now this person is calling me, I would not be turning into a fucking stranger saying, what should I do? I'd be answering that damn phone. I need to know what's happening. Yeah. I would pick up the phone. There's absolutely not a snowball's chance in hell that I would not pick up that phone. So in all of her, what should I do? Should I not pick it up? Should I pick it up? In all of her back and forth, when she goes to answer the phone, she fucking misses the call and then she can't get a hold of it.
Yeah.
I would never be able to live with myself.
No, yeah, that one
Absolutely
was really
not.
weird. I feel like it would have been the only thing, if it showed up Papa on my phone, the only thing that would make me answer it faster is if it said Papa John's.
You're so stupid.
But
Papa John's ain't gonna call you. You ain't that important.
Man. Oh
wow. So the other thing that killed me.
Papa, that one was stupid. But that was also like one.
It was one person's thing.
Weirdo's like description of what happened. Right. So I don't know.
Yeah. So, and I also don't know. So they made it seem like the person who was getting the phone call was like a young girl, like a teenager. And I don't know if she was looking to like maybe not buck the system too much. And she was just like, shit, they're not letting us talk to media. Like, should I not? Yeah, but you're talking about a young Chinese girl in Beijing who, let's be honest, they're not known for bucking the system and ruffling feathers. So she probably did not want to go against what they were expecting of her.
Yeah, I hear you.
And, she was like, well, shit, I know we're not allowed to talk to media. Like, are we allowed to talk to them if they call? Like, she probably didn't know and was not expecting that in any capacity. And they made her sound like a teenage girl. Like, I don't know what the situation was, but my understanding of it was that she was young.
That's what I thought too. My thought on that.
I think it was just the naivete. Yeah, well, I don't know. Either way. So the other thing with the phones that I could not fucking get over, and I still do not understand. So what happens if your phone fucking is on an airplane that goes down in the middle of the ocean and is gone? What happens if I call it?
I don't know.
Is it gonna ring? Is it gonna
Aquaman
go to
answers?
voicemail?
I don't know.
No, seriously. Like, if your phone is in a fiery fucking airplane crash
So
where it ends up in the ocean, is it going to ring when I call it, or is it going to go straight to voicemail?
I guess it would go straight to voicemail.
Exactly.
But and what they were ringing, correct?
Yeah. So when families were gathered and they were looking for this plane, people were calling their loved ones who were the passengers on the plane.
Yeah.
Kind of just expecting it to go to voicemail so they could hear their voice one last time. And the phones did not go directly to voicemail, but they continued to ring for a good while. And the thing that I'm most hung up on is the Find My iPhone feature existed at this time. There were GPS location options on these phones. Like, couldn't they have tracked something? I mean, the iCloud was launched in 2011.
Yeah.
The service was free and included in plans. So all of these things were in place. Couldn't they track these phones that are still ringing and still obviously functioning? And it wasn't like that was just one report. Right. There were so many people that said that they were calling and that their phones were still ringing.
So the only thing I have I agree with you with the Find My Phone thing and iCloud, but with the phones ringing part, the one thing that I found in my research was that the explanation from the cell phone companies is, which I believe is consistent with what I've actually experienced, that if your phone is disconnected from the service for some reason and somebody calls you, it's still going to ring because it's looking for the service of that phone. So what I compare this to, what I've had an experience with, is I had a US plan on my phone and I traveled to Canada. So my phone was roaming. Mm-hmm. So if my phone's roaming and I can't, if I have it like turned off to not get calls from outside of that so I don't get charged out the ass, it would still ring for them and then go to voicemail. It wouldn't go straight to voicemail because it's searching for the service of the phone.
Well, so wouldn't most people have their phones on like airplane mode or turned off when they're in the flight anyway, though?
I don't know.
So what happens when your phone is in airplane mode? Doesn't it just go to voicemail?
Probably. I don't know. But you don't need to have your phone on airplane mode while you're on. I think that's just for takeoff. At least
no,
now.
I think it's. I thought it was the whole flight.
Because they tell you. Well, they tell you. No, because you can. I don't think
you can
so.
have it on like Wi-Fi, but you can't. I don't think you can have like regular.
I don't know. I haven't flown in a while.
Like data. Yeah, we were supposed to. That all went to shit.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the other thing which I mentioned last episode, and I cannot get over it, was that they did not take Cindy Hendry seriously enough for my taste.
Cindy Hendry was the photographer.
She's the photographer who, she was in the Tom Nod group, and she was the one who found pictures of debris. One even included the M or something that resembled the M in the logo for Malaysia Airlines. She found, it was pictures of the fuselage, the, what is that weird word? Flaperon?
Flaperon.
And a wing, was it?
Yeah, I don't think she saw a picture of the flaperon.
I thought she
did. That's what they found on the beach. That's what your boy Blaine found. But she was the fuselage. I don't know, a couple other parts. A wing, and the cockpit.
I don't remember. Hold on, I'm going to look her stuff up again.
But, yeah, she found a number of things, and they did not take her seriously.
They just
Or they didn't
basically, like,
respond.
blew
just,
her off. They
yeah.
did not even acknowledge that she existed.
So she says. I don't
So
know.
she found the nose, the fuselage, and a piece that bears the M of the Malaysia Airlines logo.
Which was probably like the
according to her report. Yeah, that was what I got, was that it was the part of the tail. So she...
Tail feather.
She found the debris photos. We also had reports that that oil rig worker saw fire in the sea or fire in the sky.
Yeah.
And there were Cathay pilots who found debris fields based in Hong Kong, which is north of the point where the MH370 dropped radar.
So no, that
and then
so the that sorry that I added that in. The Cathay pilot, which I was confused about what it is, so I added it in here. A Cathay pilot is a Cathay Pacific Cadet Pilot Program.
Right.
And they are the program that is based in Hong Kong, which is just north of the point where this MH370 dropped on radar. So yeah.
So, well, I mean that still stands with what I just said, though.
Yeah.
That they found debris fields, which from their base in Hong Kong. Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, I was just explaining what that Cathay pilot was because I was confused.
I was confused too. Yeah, so I feel like with these three independent bits of information between Cindy Hendry, the oil rig worker, and then these Cathay pilots, all kind of saying that they saw similar things around the area where MH360 dropped from radar. So not this... What?
70, not 60. You said MH360.
Whatever.
Taking
Shut
the 360.
up. You're annoying. Did a fucking 180. Where MH370 dropped off of radar. All of these bits of information were where that gray zone was. So not... I mean, screw the handshakes, screw the pings. Who knows if they're even legitimate? That could have just been something they screwed with if this Inmarsat data was something that could be messed around with anyway. All three of these independent situations found what I would consider evidence in the area where they originally dropped off of radar and where it was potential that it went down. They got so hung up on these handshakes instead of following what people actually saw and found. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if they had jumped
data instead of the eyewitness.
Right. And I think if they would have jumped on the information that Cindy Hendry and that oil rig worker would have said in the beginning, I think that there's a possibility that some of this might have been found and some of these people could have had closure a hell of a lot sooner. But I just feel like for whatever reason, they were not taken seriously. And that is the one bit I can't get over. Fuck the phone calls. Screw Blaine and his jackassery. But I can't get over the fact that these people were not taken seriously. That part is the most shady part to me. Okay. And I don't know. That doesn't sit right with me. So I tie that all
into my theory.
Here we go.
But I'm not even going to get to my theory yet because
okay.
I'm going to get to some of these other theories first. So, hijacking by the Russians was one. Another was it was hijacked and flown to Iraq in preparation for a terrorism attack. I don't necessarily believe that because, like, what are they going to do with it and why haven't we seen it come up yet? So, what's the point there?
It's me.
First thing I thought of, and this is not my grand theory, but first thing I thought of, because I'm in the insurance industry, so first thing I thought of was this is an insurance scam.
Yeah, it's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Especially given Malaysia's current state of events at the time.
And they went bankrupt afterward. So
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe they were just trying to dig some money out of it. I don't know.
Maybe they were trying to avoid that.
Yeah, I don't know. Then there's the suspicious cargo theory.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a shit ton of cargo too. Was it 2.5 tons?
Yeah, 2.5 tons of
electronics.
Electronics.
It was just like miscellaneous. Like you could fucking put that on a plane.
This is where my theory comes in.
Yeah.
So this is where my theory comes in.
Hit me.
All right.
What you got?
So this is a big one.
Oh, shit.
I'm still kind of working it out. But, so there's this
That would have been a
cargo-
good thing to do, like, before now.
No, because even going through this again, I'm thinking more of it and tying more things to it. It makes sense to me. So, there's this suspicious cargo that was put on MH370.
Oh.
Don't really know what it was. There was some reports that it was lithium-ion batteries.
Somebody said it was walkie-talkies.
Walkie-talkies, but whatever. There was cargo put on. There's these two big military exercises going on in the area. A theory that these AWACS jammed the radar and communications of MH370. Mm-hmm. So my theory is that whatever this cargo was, one of these countries that was in this military operation wanted it.
Okay.
So the AWACS do exactly that and jam the radar, make communication with this pilot, tell him what to do. He doesn't do it. They shoot him down. And Cindy Hendry does actually see the pictures of that Malaysian airline down in the China Sea.
Okay.
All of the radar information that everybody's following, they say consistently, the radar shows an aircraft. They cannot identify what kind of aircraft it is.
Mm-hmm. They don't even say how big it is. I mean, it could have been a
Right.
helicopter.
They don't know the size. They don't know anything. So my theory is they shot this
UFO
down, and that radar was an AWAC that was pulling the radar to make sure that it was focused on exactly that airplane. They tracked it wherever the fuck they want, flew it down south, which is not far from the Diego Garcia Air Base in the southern Indian Ocean. So, my theory is that these AWACS did shoot this thing, or one of these militaries did shoot something down. The reason nobody paid attention to Cindy Hendry is because they're covering it up. And the AWACS basically pulled this Inmarsat data down using all the technology available to the AWAC and radar jamming and all that, and placed this, quote, crash wherever the fuck they wanted. Mm-hmm. And then Russia got this Blaine guy to magically find all of these pieces and kind of in a way confirm, yes, something went down in the Indian Ocean.
I mean, it does tie in all of the theories and all of the bits that were kind of confusing.
Yeah. So that's my big theory. So the other theory that I love this theory, and it's not something that anybody talked about. What?
Go ahead.
Not something anybody talked about on Netflix, is semiconductor technology. What the fuck is that? So, when I first saw this, I thought, well, is this like another thing that they're saying was this mysterious cargo?
Yeah.
No. So there's this company called Freescale Semiconductor. It's a tech company, and they make microprocessors and sensors, and they have government contracts, and they do all sorts of shit. So supposedly, they had 20 high-value employees on the flight, including 4 of the 5 patent owners of some of their biggest technology.
Okay.
The 5th patent owner is none other than the British investment banker and billionaire Jacob Rothschild of the Rothschild family.
I immediately don't trust this asshole.
So, the theory is that Rothschild, having all of the fucking money and control in the world, because there's theories that the Rothschild family basically like sets the dollar amount for the world and they fucking control everything.
Aren't they a bunch of inbred motherfuckers too?
Yeah. So there's this whole theory about the
Hills have
Rothschild
eyes.
family that I feel like actually we're probably going to get into at some point.
They're on my list.
So there's this theory is that this patent went through. Jacob Rothschild is now the sole owner of this patent because the
other
other
four
people
owners died
in this plane crash.
Hmm.
And again, since insurance, the other thing that
Is the
I
way
had
your
to
mind
add,
works.
other thing I had to add into this is when companies have large intellectual property that is attributed to a specific individual in that company, they purchase what's called key person insurance on them. So, like, Apple would have had that on Steve Jobs
Okay.
because of his ideas. He drove their business.
Right.
So if he died, Apple would get a shitload of money so that they could hopefully find somebody else to do the same job.
To fill his shoes. Okay.
Right. So
Didn't he die?
Rothschild would have the same insurance policies out on all these other patent owners.
Well, that's convenient.
So he would get dumped a shitload more money.
Like he fucking needs
Like
it.
he needs it, exactly. Yeah.
That's a hell of a note to end on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sick. That's bullshit.
Do you have one theory that you think really happened? Do you have your own theory?
I like the suspicious cargo theory that you just threw out a minute ago. I think that one makes the most sense because I'm really hung up on why Cindy Hendry wasn't taken seriously and why, if this plane hit these pings over these very large military operations, nobody seemed to give a shit,
Yep.
which seems very odd to me. Like,
Yep.
but if they were a part of it, which is highly likely, then they'd be able, it wouldn't be abnormal on their radar. They wouldn't give a shit that it was flying over because they were a part of it.
Yeah.
And then if, like you said, Cindy found something she wasn't supposed to find, they would hush
Right.
that. But I think that her being part of an independent group and the Tom Nodders and them kind of having their own agenda and not really giving a shit about who's covering what up and wanting to find the truth, like, I would think that she would have pushed a little harder, or maybe the other people in the group would have taken her a little more seriously.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly she dumped it all over Twitter and social media.
Right, but I would think that her group, I mean, the entire purpose of that group was to divide up these sections of the map, essentially, and have them look at these individual areas. And she happened to get assigned to the area where it fell off radar. So I don't know. I mean, I think that their entire purpose was a little bit more independent, like where they wouldn't really give a shit to what the military said. I mean, unless they were sent like fucking cease and desist letters or something.
It still wouldn't stop most people.
Right.
But
so that's the part that I'm hung up on, is that I don't think that would be enough to shut them up or to make the entire group turn away from Cindy.
you know how speculative I was on all this?
What?
I even looked to see, like, because obviously I don't know when this was recorded.
Yeah.
When the Netflix special was recorded, but I looked up Cindy Hendry to see if she was still alive.
Okay.
If she was unalived by anybody since this came out.
Unalived.
Or since it was recorded. I was like, I don't
Could
know.
have go back and in memory put her
Yeah,
in our
right.
Big Brothered episode.
Yeah. So I was like, But no, she's still alive and kicking.
You know what? I really just want Body Movin' and John Green on the case.
Yes.
Which, again, nod to Don't Fuck with Cats. If you haven't watched it, oh my God.
Go check it out.
Go. It's awesome. It's worth every single second.
Yeah.
I apologize for the loss of sleep that you're going to have after that, because you will want to know everything and anything about Luca Magnato when you're done.
Yes.
Because homeboy was nutso, or is nutso.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was heavy.
Yeah.
I don't love the Freescale semiconductor theory, but I could definitely see that being true. I think I like the suspicious cargo because it ties up all the things that I was like, hung up on that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
That nobody seemed to be talking enough about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just kind of like thrown in there like an, oh, by the way. But I feel like those bits of information that just weren't taken seriously or didn't seem to fit anywhere else all kind of fall into that.
Yeah.
So I think that one to me makes the most sense. But which one are you're liking the semiconductor one the best?
I like that one the best.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think my theory is it ties everything in.
What's that?
The I guess is what you're calling the suspicious cargo one.
Yeah.
The AWACS
Yeah.
took over the yeah. So
With the electronics, yeah.
That's I think to me that makes the most sense.
That one I think
because
is
that's the basic one that it traces everything that happened.
And it checks all the boxes.
It checks the boxes. It reinforces that military has more power than what they want us to know. It reinforces that none of the military actually want to explain what happened because they don't want the public to know what they're capable of. I don't know.
And it reinforces why they didn't alert anybody when they saw it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the part that I'm hung up on. Like, if it was flying over something it shouldn't have been, a military airbase would have shot that shit down.
Especially with the exercises going on.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the part that I'm hung up on is like, that's your whole fucking job. Like, that's the whole purpose of having something like that.
Watch the skies. Get the birds up in the skies to watch them. Maybe this is what does birds aren't real have to say about this?
Maybe a bunch of fake bird shit took down.
Maybe that's what it was.
The airline.
Maybe birds should have shit on it more so they could track it better.
Yeah,
Shout out to birds aren't real.
Maybe all these pings were just other birds.
The pings were actually ham sandwiches being dropped out the windows of the airplane.
Ham sandwich. Oh man. All right. Well, I think the electronics, the suspicious cargo, the military involvement, I think that one is my favorite of the bunch. Also, it gives my girl Cindy Hendry a little bit more credibility because I really loved her in this, and I feel like justice for Cindy needs to be a hashtag because she was pretty awesome, and I really think that she was onto something, and she just felt like she just kept running into dead ends, and she was like, I have this information, no one will fucking listen to me. Like, that's got to be so frustrating.
Yeah.
Especially when, like, the entire fucking world is looking for this plane, and you're like, yo, I found bits of it, and no one will hear you out. Because they're all like, well, no, that's not where it is. It's down here in the South Indian Ocean, not where, up by the, where the hell was she? Where was her debris?
She was in the China Sea.
South China Sea, yeah. So I think that she deserved better, but.
Justice for Cindy.
Justice for Cindy.
Start the GoFundMe page.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'll hashtag it, but that's about it. But
well, what do you guys think?
Yeah, let us know what you think. Let us know what you liked, didn't like,
Give
agree
us your
with,
theories.
don't. If you want to sponsor an episode, please feel free. Thank you again to our friend and listener who did. We will definitely be starting some research on that. Keep an eye out for the new merch coming.
Yes.
Hopefully sooner rather than later, but we're waiting for the official reveal. That way we can share it with y'all. And yeah.
Yep. Awesome.
Fun stuff. We didn't do a toast at the beginning.
We didn't.
Is that because I'm just drinking water?
You're drinking water, yeah. We'll
Sorry.
toast it now, though.
We can. Do a double now.
Yeah, do a double to,
what is it? Once to friends and twice to absent enemies? Wasn't that
Once to absent friends, twice to absent enemies. Yep. That's what it is. Oh, no, not even a good... Give me like a... Oh, my God, that sucks. Night, everyone.
Good night, Malaysian 370.